So as I was saying before we hit record here, we've done a lot of completing the square application stuff so far. Now we're going to break into circle mode. But before we bust out circle mode here, quick review of a few things so we know what we're doing and how we're going to get there. Standard form of a circle, okay? That's what these look like. We'll be a little more generic up here. Do you notice with all this stuff we do, whether it's absolute value, whether it's graphing a quadratic, whether it's dealing with a circle, H and K show up everywhere. And they have a lot of the same uses, not every single time. But it kind of starts to give us a clue of what things are going to look like a bit. So that's going to be our goal with our completing the square here in a bit, getting to this form. So, identify the center of the circle, the radius, graphic. Like we've done this already, Hardy. I know, but I want to make sure we're seeing where this all goes. When you're doing your circle, both H and K are opposite. This is the one exception to what we normally do. K is normally not the opposite, but it is this time. So oppos on both of those. That's our squared, so take the square root of it. 2, -3. And then we're just going to go 2 each direction. We're not making a diamond, though. We're just going to circle mode. Yeah, all right. Can you give us a bunch of these? No. No, I cannot at this point. Just again, getting a little bit of a review. What about... Yo, yes, I'm sorry. Because that part is r squared. So if r squared is 4, to get r, I would take the square root of 4. Hence, it can be a decimal sometimes. Yep, if it's a decimal, we just kind of guesstimate a little bit on where that's going to be. Most of the time it won't be, though. Good question. So what if I'm giving other info? A couple of reminders again, because you know how I work on quizzes or tests and things down the road. Things tend to miraculously show back up. So I'm given the center. That's always nice. X opposite of H squared plus Y opposite of K squared. Oh, be careful. Don't square the 18. That's the diameter. What's the radius going to be? 9. So that's going to be 9 squared. Okay. So you're like, all right. It's nice that they just give us radius, but always make sure, again, part of being a mathematician is attention to detail and watching for stuff like that. Here, same idea. This was some of your all's not favorite part of the last part when we were dealing with circles. You're like, all right, we got the center again, Hardy. That's nice at least. It's true. So we can do that part. X opposite of H squared plus Y opposite of K squared. But now, they just gave us a point on the circle. What the heck? So, little side work we got to do here. We'll do it down at the bottom. I need to know how far it is from the center to the point on the circle. Couple of ways I could do this. One of them would be to use the distance formula. So if we do that, you take the difference of your x values squared plus the difference of your y values squared. Now I could try to type all that into my calculator, but that's a lot of parentheses and negatives and parentheses and more parentheses, and I don't want to deal with all that. So here's what I'm going to do instead. Minus and negative is plus. So negative 15 plus 15 is 0. I like 0. 0 is a wonderful number. Plus, oh my gosh. There we go. 3 plus 1 would be 4 squared. You're like, well, this turned out nice. Hardy's pen, not so much. So 0 squared is 0. 4 squared is 16. So my radius is 4. And the equation wants radius squared. Okie dokie, thank you. So, again, I got to look at the information. I have to be able to make the adjustment, and I have to be able to get to the end game here. But again, you're like, Hardy, what's that have to do with completing the square? Still don't see it. We're getting there. We're getting there. It's finally about to get there. We just got one more thing we have to discuss. Because all of our standard form of a circle, almost all, I should say, has been looking like this. It doesn't always look like that, though. So, here's the deal. New stuff. Let's do the general conic form of a circle. Circles can take on a different equation from what we just saw. So let me give you a look at this, and then you're going to see why we'd rather deal with completing the square and not look at a circle this way. That is not as much fun for graphing, finding the center, or anything than the general form or the standard form is of a circle. It's all the same parts. It's just without the parentheses. It's like if you were to multiply and FOIL out your entire standard form. So now, do I really want to do that all the time? No. So here's what we're going to do instead. Use the information provided to write the equation of the circle in general conic form. Okay, here's what we normally would have to do. Here's the Hardy buy-in. We're going to start with what we normally would do. So x opposite of h squared. We're just doing opposites. We're going standard form first. Y opposite of k squared. And my radius squared. Got to remember the squared part. Okay? Standard form. Not what we're doing, though. We're going to multiply this out. Now, instead of you having to do what I'm doing on the Post-it note, what I would much rather have you do is know the pattern to this to make this foiling go a lot faster. So let's say I was foiling out x minus 7 squared. So I got 2 of these. And if this makes more sense to you when I do it this way. But you got to do it one of the ways. So x squared minus 7x minus 7x plus 49. So when I multiply this out, okay, there's my first piece. Let me do the same thing one more time with the y, and then I'll show you where you can make this go a lot faster if you just notice one little detail. So, little outer, little inner. You might start noticing what the pattern is here already. Whoops, that's minus. Minus. Oofda. Okay, here's what I'm hoping you notice, or now that you will once I mention it. If I take negative 7 and I double it, I multiply it by 2, I get negative 14. If I take negative 1 and I double it, multiply by 2, I get negative 2. Instead of having to FOIL this whole thing out, all you have to do is square your first term, so x squared. Multiply these together and double it. Negative 7x double is negative 14, and square your last term. So square each of the first and last terms, double that number to get your middle term. You can FOIL. You'll get the same thing. It's going to go faster this way. And I'll keep doing that when we do it from here on out. But now how do we get to this? Now it's just a big game of rearranging stuff. Here's what I like to do. I don't like to do it all in one step. So I notice it's x squared, then y squared, then x, then y, then my constant. So x squared first, check. Then y squared, check. Then my x term, check. Then my y term, check. Now, for my numbers, do I want to rewrite this one more time? I think I do. It's an example. I can add the coefficients together. They're one and the same. So I've combined all my like terms and rearranged squared constant term at the end. But I need it to equal 0. One last thing to do. That 50's got to move. So, excuse me, the 16 has to move. Get it right, Hardy. So all the x's and y's, I'm not doing a darn thing, but I want this to equal 0, so I'm minusing the 16 over. That, ladies and gentlemen, is conic form of a circle. You're going to see more stuff like that as you get like into pre-calc because there's different things you're going to be doing with it. So it's just making that transformation. So that one I think is worthy of getting a second try because we're going to be basically doing this backwards come the next step. So let's kind of see what we get here. So x opposite of h. Got to remember the oppo or we're kind of messed up at the start. Y opposite of k. Be careful. I'm going to keep trying to pull this. Diameter's 10. My radius is 5 squared. So standard form first. Here's where we're going to roll the shortcut. We're going to FOIL this without foiling. All right. Square my first term. Double the positive 13 is positive 26x. Ooh, square that. 13 squared is 169. Same thing here. Y squared. Double the negative 16 is negative 32y. Oofda. Negative 16 in parentheses, if you're going to the calculator squared, it's got to come out positive, is 256. So all of our parentheses are gone. We've fully multiplied this out. Now it's just putting everything in order from the greatest degree to the least. So x squared, y squared, 26x minus 32y. Now let's just fix this up. So 169 plus 256, but I need to minus the 25 over. I'm in conic. So the more you know some of these shortcuts, the less room it takes, the less time it's going to take. We're going to practice. So what does that have to do with completing the square? Well, you kind of start to get an idea when you're looking at these, because if you think about it, if you're given this form and you work backwards, ooh, it's like those little blanks that we had before, except they're going to go over here too. And we're going to work it backwards to get there. So it's not going to be a bad thing. It's another one of those things that practice is going to get you used to it. So, okay. First job. These are all going to be in conic form. Okay. Move the x's together and then the y's together. And add a blank after them. Okay, so here's what this is going to look like. So here's my x's. I'm going to write kind of small here. So put the x's together with a blank. I'm actually going to put parentheses around these two, just so I know they're there, especially if you don't have different colors. Okay, we're going to put the y terms together with a blank. What about the 222? That's got to go to the other side. And we're not going to be doing 8 and 10, so if you need room, you take the room you need. So negative 222 plus both of the blanks that I'm going to end up filling with my x's and y's. Here comes the complete the square part. So the x's and the y's are each going to need their own value. So you're going to have to complete the square twice. So if we need a little refresher, I'm going to take this 30. I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to square it. So that's my x blank. And I'm going to do the same thing with my y. Take my negative 2, cut it in half, and square it. So what's going to happen very quickly is that this is going to look like regular standard form of a circle, because half of 30 is 15, or if I did my side work, just the number I squared. Half of negative 2 is negative 1, or it's right there. And add all those up. There's my circle. I'm done. And then I can get my center and take the square root to get my radius. Just got to keep reminding yourself. X's go together, Y's go together. Yes, sir. Because the 222 we just subtracted over to get it away from our variables. Then we did our completing the square process on the x's to get the 225. On the y's here to get the 1. And whatever I put in the blanks on the left, I also have to put in the blanks on the right. So then I just add this 222 that I subtracted over plus my 2 blank numbers.
Okay.
Because it's just like completing the square before. It's always that number divided by 2 and squared to get those blanks. We just got to make sure, whether it be in an equation again, that we keep those blanks equal on both sides, or we change values up. So let's play with one more before we see. You're like, Hardy, is there any more twists? Maybe. Maybe. We'll see. Okay. X's together. Watch your signs. And if you want to do your blanks right away when you're doing these instead of waiting, that's fine. I mean, we could. We could be like, all right, negative 14 divided by 2. So that'll be 49. I think some of you will get to a point with these smaller ones especially, you'll be able to do them in your head. If you're practicing. So 12 divided by 2. I think it's worth it to even have scratch paper if you need it. So all the stuff that has anything to do with the variable has been worked through. But the variables, again, want their own thing going on. They don't want the 21 hanging here. So it moves to the other side, but it is going to be joined by both of our blanks. So let's see here. Half of negative 14. Or again, if I did my side work, it's that number in parentheses. Half of a positive 12. Oh, let's see here. 85 minus 21 is 64. More times than not, your radius is going to be a perfect square. If it's not, double check. I mean, it's not impossible. We said that earlier, but it usually will be. Opposite of h, opposite of k, square root. It's like anything else, the more you practice, the more you're going to become a finely tuned machine. There can't be anything left. I got one left. Just one. Just one. I'm not doubling down. Just doing one. Change the equation to standard form. Find the center and the radius. Like Hardy, we're doing the same thing again. You're right. So you know what I'm going to do? You know it. Freeze frame. Try to set this up with you're completing the square on 11. The only thing that's different is we're going to actually graph it this time. So give it a shot. See if hopefully we're kind of picking up on things, or at least we're figuring out where our questions are, so we can deal with that. If you need to peek at the examples as you go, that's okay. This is the time to be doing that stuff. Give you a heads up. Your radius will come out nice this time. Everybody at home watching Hardy going, Hardy, what are you doing? Which is an excellent question. So you're going to see here momentarily that even I, who've been doing this for like, it feels like half my life, well, actually I have, can mess things up, maybe. Unfreeze. For some reason, I thought that negative 16 plus 9 plus 16 was 16. So as you can see, I made my circle wrong the first time. Then I looked at it again and I'm like, wait a minute. Something don't look right here. Oh yeah, it's 9. So that is 9. That is 3. I got my center though. I got my center. So those are easy enough things to have happen if we need to. Okay. Anything immediate that you're seeing question-wise doesn't mean you can't ask later. Just means, do we have anything now we need to take a peek at before I get you into practice and what we're rolling on this